I just want to give you a quick introduction to Chapter 8. This chapter is all about monopoly, oligopoly, and monopolistic competition, basically the imperfectly competitive forms of industry. And so the major concepts we're going to want to take out of this, first and foremost, is how do we calculate marginal revenue for a monopolist? The profit maximizing rule for a monopolist is the same as it is for a competitive firm. They're going to produce where marginal revenue is greater than or equal to marginal cost. But marginal revenue is different for a monopolist. The reason being is that monopolists are price makers and competitive firms are price takers. And so since a monopolist has control of a market enough to where their quantity dictates the price, the more they produce, the lower price they have to charge, not just for the next good, but for all of the other ones that they've already produced. A competitive firm doesn't have this problem. A competitive firm, remember, the marginal revenue is just the price. However many they can sell at the market price, it's not enough to impact the market. That's kind of the definition of a perfectly competitive firm. But for an imperfectly competitive firm, if they want to sell more, they have to do so at a lower price. And so the marginal revenue for a monopolist is always less than the price. While as for a competitive firm, the marginal revenue is always equal to the price. So the first thing you have to learn is how to calculate marginal revenue for a monopolist. And I've included a couple videos that should help you figure that one out. It's also in your textbook. The second thing you have to understand is what is the profit maximizing quantity and price for a monopolist? What level do they set to maximize their profits? What prices do they charge to maximize their profits? And again, it's the same rule. They go where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, but then they charge the price that the buyers are willing to pay, which is illustrated by the demand curve. And so again, I've included a few videos here from Mr. Clifford, the AC/DC economics guy, that really kind of highlight how to read these curves and how to figure out where the monopolist should produce. Of course, it's all in your book, but I think it's better to see it a few different ways, presented a couple different styles, and that's always going to make things set in. The next thing you need to understand is kind of how monopolists can use price discrimination to sort of increase their profits. And the way they do this is by sort of taking away consumer surplus and swapping it out basically for their own producer surplus. And they do this through price discrimination. So you're going to learn a little bit about how monopolists can price discriminate. And then the last thing we're going to learn is sort of the impact of monopolies on efficiency in terms of economic surplus. And remember, total surplus is just the combined producer and consumer surplus. And we'll see that under a monopolist, the output is restricted. And when output's restricted, that means we're leaving some cash on the table. It means we're not being efficient. And so you're going to have to understand how to measure and calculate the size of this lost efficiency, something we call the deadweight loss. So the four things you have to learn from this chapter is calculate a monopolist's marginal revenue, figure out how a monopolist maximizes profit, what their profit maximizing price and quantity is, how monopolists are able to use price discrimination to sort of get more profit, and how to calculate the size of the lost efficiency that results from a monopoly, something we call the deadweight loss. All right, I hope you enjoyed Chapter 8.